Welcome everyone to our 24.1 specific topic Q&A for the Su-67 Advanced Pylon development. Very glad to have you all here. We are appreciative of your time and we're very happy to be able to share this topic with you today. You're why SBCC exists. At SBCC, we're a part of Air Force Global Strike Command's Commercial Capabilities Integration and Transfer, or CCIT initiative. So we're not a typical middleman defense contractor. We're an advisory and assistance service provider, ANAS provider to the U.S. Air Force. So that means we're hired by them to find the technology that our warfighters need. One of our emphases is scouring the technology landscape to bring the Air Force and DoD technologies that they didn't know existed. But what we really like to do is find out from our military precisely what they need, and they're willing to put manpower, resources, and money towards, and then go find solutions that meet those needs. And we know that this is one of those efforts, and we're glad you're here to be a part of it. The military can be a lucrative partner for you, but it can also be a long, hard road to navigate. The military's primary focus, as you know, has not been on being a great business partner. Its focus has been on being an effective sword and shield, ready to be wielded when we need it. Our purpose at SBCC is to help the military work well with businesses and make it easier for business to understand and do business with the military. It's always helpful to share that since the Air Force is who pays our bills, we are completely free service to the companies with whom we work. So we're helping you communicate with the Air Force with you at no cost to you. To say it another way, Global Strike Command and Air Education Training Command have hired us to be, their matchmaker. So we want to make sure we find the best companies to get after the problems that they have. As we meet today, just know this meeting is being recorded. The video and audio will be publicly available. I'm going to have my team put a Fireflies disclaimer in the chat, so be aware of that and make sure you take a look at that if that's of interest to you. Please don't ask questions or make comments that will give away your company's proprietary information or strategy. You work hard for it. We want to make sure that you give thought to the questions you ask, again, because this is a public setting. As you're talking today, please put your questions in the Q&A section. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A. Don't put your questions in the chat, but rather in the Q&A. Now, we've actually asked our moderator to disable the ability to ask questions in the chat. So if you find yourself not able to do that, it's because you're probably trying to do it in chat. So be sure you go over to the Q&A to do that. We can make, in fact, I'm going to ask my team to put a link to the pre-release DSIP topic in the chat, and that way you'll be able to see everything that's there regarding the publicly available information and this topic. I'll also ask our team to add links to AFWERK's current dates for pre-release, open and close periods. Those can and do change, so I want to make sure you're all aware of that. You don't want the rug pulled out from under you because you thought date X was the right one and AFWERK's changed it and then you missed the submission. So check out those links, and frankly, I urge you to kind of keep tabs on those because, again, they can and they do change, and I don't want to see you miss the opportunity to put your submission in. Particularly regarding today, we're in the pre-release period. So questions are going to be limited to specific information related to improving your understanding of the topic requirements. And I'll say that again because it'll help us in this meeting today if we're laser focused on this one issue. Questions should be limited to specific information related to improving the understanding of the topic requirements. No questions, are allowed for advice or guidance on the solution approach. Nor may materials be submitted to the TPOC or SME. Additional materials be submitted. And again, be mindful of how you ask your questions. Topics like this one can become highly classified quickly. So in order to avoid vulnerabilities, we'll purposely avoid specific information as much as possible and keep the discussion general. The answers that you may get might be, it's confidential. We can't answer at this point. Or if you're selected for the phase 2, then we can, release some of that information to you. And dealing with that topic of phase 1 and 2, understand again, this is a phase 1 effort, and this may help focus your questions. The phase 1 effort is to conduct a feasibility study with the government stakeholders to see if your technology will fit their needs and to collaborate with them. Again, this is just a feasibility study. Is your solution feasible? Is the government going to see that it can actually meet their need in the way that they want it to? That's the question. So we're not talking about prototyping questions. We're not talking about building anything. We're certainly not talking about fielding it or funding it and those sorts of questions. This is the entry stage. You're hoping to take your first date with the government, and you want to put your best foot forward, and that's kind of where we are at the early stage here. During this feasibility study, we'll collaboratively determine the specific application and thresholds and objectives that the technology needs to meet. Later, if you're chosen for phase 2, then you'll focus on creating the prototype. So again, I hope that's clear. The phase 1 should be an explanation of your technology or solution. Essentially, it's proposing a 6-month research project to assess your tech and work with the government to come up with a use case for it. The specifics on how to adapt it will be in the phase 2, the follow-on proposal. So I'm not talking a whole lot about adaptation and prototyping in this at this time. The phase 1 that we're working on now, the award will be, well, first it'll be a 6-month period of performance because there is no prototyping. You don't need as much time, but the award is up to $180,000. The phase 2, the prototype phase, is, I believe, still a 2-year period of performance with up to 1.8 million as an award. So it's 10 times because there's so much more involved, obviously, in the prototyping. The pre-release period we're in now closes, and when it closes, the open period will begin January 3rd, and it'll run through February the 7th, unless, again, AFWERX changes the dates. Again, always refer to their website and check it frequently to make sure you're tracking with the correct times. Again, yeah, Dayton, if you can drop a link showing that, that would be fantastic. I do want to say 1 or 2 final things before I let the TPOCs begin answering questions. There are 4 things that commonly cause disqualification of submissions, and I urge you as companies to make a note of these. Now, again, these are things that will mean your submission isn't even looked at because it failed in one of these 4 areas while you submitted it. One, the dollar request. You've got to keep it under the max. So in this case, if it is 180,000 and it stays that way, then don't request 180,000 and a penny or $1 beyond that, because it'll just be, filed away. It won't even be looked at. Keep it under the 180. Period of performance should be 6 months or less, no longer than that. The third is that all docs are not filled out. Remarkably, sometimes submissions come in and they're partially filled out. You need to make sure you have all the documents and they're all filled out. And fourth and finally, sometimes submissions are not relevant to the topic, and so they'll be disqualified on that. So keep it under 180,000, under 6 months, fill out all the documents, and make sure that the submission is relevant to the topic. And those things would at least get you before the government to look at your capabilities in your company. So that's it for my monologue. The great stuff starts now. I'm going to introduce the TPOC and remind the TPOC, please, after you introduce yourself and you describe what you're looking for in this effort, when you start answering questions, please read the question first and then answer it. And if you're able or willing to ask the questions that you've already received and answer them first, and then we can start hitting the live questions that come in today. And again, I urge you companies, if you have a question regarding the feasibility study, the phase 1, this is your time. You are talking to government experts. You have a chance to be presenting your questions to them before this thing gets started, and that's kind of rare. So be sure you try to get those questions ready. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Soko and to your team for your introductions, and you can go ahead and begin answering the questions after that.
Okay, that sounds good. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. So, hey, I'm Major Kyle Thompson. I go by Soko. I am the Chief of Weapons Requirements here at Air Force Global Strike Command. Also joining me on the call today is Mr. Barry Walsh, who works with me in advanced programs here at Global Strike. And then also listening in on the call, I guess answering questions via surrogate today is Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Gray, goes by Shades. He's the B-52 PIM here at Global Strike Command. So just kind of the overarching introduction of what we're looking for. So, just to kind of keep this, short and concise. The current landscape, as far as the threat environment go, is forcing us to develop weapons that fly farther and farther, right? So, adversaries, throughout the globe are pushing us farther and farther out their I guess areas of influence. Um, that presents some unique challenges to the B-52 as we work to keep that platform relevant. Specifically in the realm of weapons development, existing pylons, existing weapons aren't necessarily getting after these problems like we need to. Thus, developing new capabilities and the resulting capabilities that we have to utilize to carry those munitions. So we've in just a quick history lesson. We've looked at this problem, through the past couple of years. Shades and his team have gone to, I guess, larger industry partners to kind of get solutions, and all those were either expensive, took too long, whatever attribute you want to ascribe to those. So we sit here and started thinking to ourselves, what are some potential options of things that we have in existence that could potentially cut down on some of those costs and developmental timelines? Well, the reality is right now we are in the process of developing LRSO, which is the long range standoff weapon for the new uh, nuclear cruise missile that's in development right now. Um, that has estimated delivery time of not too far in the distant future, but gives us some time to potentially work on a potential utilization of the existing Alchem, which is the current cruise missile, nuke cruise missile. As that weapon divests and rides off into the sunset, its carriage mechanisms will still be around and give us a capability to potentially convert over to conventional use, to accommodate some of these larger conventional munitions. So I think right now, we're kind of geared towards existing inventories of JASSM, LRASM type weapon systems, but the future is going to, which are all 168-inch weapons, but the future is going to require us to expand on past that to weapons that potentially are up to 249 inches or greater than that. And we like to be able to carry those types of munitions in existing carriage quantities as we get out of smaller munitions today. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of what we're trying to get after. The current Su-67 is, like I said, currently just modified to support Alchem and the nuke mission. So we're trying to figure out and assess out and tease 1760 conventional compatibility, while maintaining the existing kind of load structure of that pylon, if not potentially even expand that out to carry even more munitions. So with that, I can turn it over quickly to Barry for a quick introduction. He's more so ingrained in the Alchem program, as well as the NWC and the Alchem SPO that supports all of that. But Barry's very knowledgeable about what we're trying to get after with the Su-67, and has a lot of the kind of the backstory and the history that goes along with it. So Barry, if you want to just introduce yourself.
Thank you, Soko. Yeah, good morning to everybody, or good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. This is a really neat endeavor for us, and it's the first time for Soko uh, and uh, and Shades and I to be involved in this small business opportunity. So we're really excited for that, and looking forward to how your so how some modern technologies can come to bear to help us modify and keep this uh, keep keep this 50-year-old pylon uh, still fighting and still viable for the future. So we're super excited to hear some proposals as to how you would tackle a problem like that. Uh, so I have more of a technical background with the pylon itself over the years while I was active duty in the Air Force. And so I know the ins and outs of the pylon and what it's going to take to actually do the modification work. And so you can ask me those types of questions. Over.
Okay, so with that, I guess we can go ahead and start and just respond into some of the questions that have been previously posed to us. So we have met with some folks, offline already. So we'll try to do our best to capture all those questions. I guess the good thing is a lot of those were a lot of repeat questions. So we can just go ahead and get started, and then from there, I guess just take live Q&A from that point forward.
And
So I'll start.
let me jump in briefly. And just as a reminder, those are companies that, again, these are companies that have already discussed with the government. So anything that's relevant that is public knowledge, he can share. But just for the companies out here, just want you to know that he's not going to reveal proprietary information. So if a company asked a question that would reveal proprietary information, he's not going to be sharing that, and we want you to know that we protect that when you ask those sorts of questions. So I just wanted to add that comment briefly, and I'll be quiet and let you finish.
Nope, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, so just for starters, we've received a lot of questions about the ability for us to provide any sort of drawing or existing CAD models or anything like that that supports the existing Su-67 pylon. So just to clarify right now, just based on the guidance that we've received so far, uh, there are existing hand drawings and tech data available for the Su-67. However, that information will not be shared until we start getting into a follow-on phase and contracts are awarded, and we have the appropriate paperwork and agreements signed between the government and any company that wishes to participate in that process. With that being said, however, we do currently have on hand the existing part number for the pylon, as well as the TO that the current folks use to maintain the pylon on a regular basis, and I'll go ahead and provide that information. So it's part number 361-12001-510-001-510-001-510-001. And it's technical order 16W6-33-1. So that's been a common question that we've gotten thus far on this process. Additionally, we've received some questions because of kind of the opening monologue there about the Su-67 currently being involved in the nuclear mission. So we've had a couple of questions about will the upgraded or modified pylon be required to maintain its nuclear certification? And the answer to that is we are not actively pushing for that pylon to maintain its nuclear certification. We don't want that to be a hindrance on conventional capability. However, we also want to stress that anything that we can do to maintain nuclear certification is essentially cherry and sprinkles on top of this ice cream sandwich that we're trying to make. So, or sundae that we're trying to make. So don't let that be hold back to anything that you were wishing to propose, or how you would want to go about doing your business. But I think if we can maintain nuclear certification on that pylon, that would be a plus. Additionally, just in terms of general requirements that we're looking for out of the pylon. So I'll just read you, and I can provide all this. I'll get a contact list of who's all involved, and I can provide a full up kind of narrative of all this information. But so the assumption that we're trying to use in terms that are driving our requirements is that a modified Su-67 pylon will retain its existing total weight of 4,481 pounds, or weight increases will not preclude the loading of the pylon at the wing station with 8x AGM 158 Bravos, which are current JASM weapons, with a weight of 2,420 pounds. Additionally, modifications will not impede the existing capability of the Su-67 to load 249-inch munitions, 3,500-pound weapons at the existing 6 stations. Impacts to nuclear hardening and/or certification are acceptable if required to meet those requirements. And then we are looking for, in the distant future, ultimately to get to a demonstration of this capability, potentially using a JASM or something along those lines. But that's kind of what we're looking at from a big picture perspective in terms of requirements. Additionally, we're also exploring the options for down the road capabilities, which gets us into the digital twin and the CAD modeling, to get after what does it look like to potentially, add additional carriage options at the existing stations. So whether or not that includes some sort of splitter or something like that, which is not necessarily in the scope of the pylon wiring, but we don't want to do any sort of modification to the pylon that would prevent us from making any of those modifications into the future. So I think ultimately that would look like at least the ability to have the pylon modified or wired at each station to support additional weapons, at least 2 weapons per station. So right now the pylon has 6 hard points. So that would give us, the ability to potentially at least have wiring for 12 munitions on that pylon. All right. Additional questions that we've received so far involve, the type of wiring and materials that are used. So all of this stuff is going to need to be compatible with existing government guidelines. It needs to be able to maintain compatibility with 1760 mil standard, and all those are government reference. Are government references that you should be able to look up and deem compatible. And I think those probably cover all of the main crux of all of the questions that we've received so far. If we want to move on to live Q&A.
Very good, sir. Can you see the questions in the live Q&A? If not, I'm happy to read them out to you.
Stand by a second. I can. All right, so let's hear. I got a question from James. Can 2 or more companies collaborate on a submission? That's probably not a question for me to answer. That's probably a question for Cody or one of the other guys.
Yeah, Dayton, you can back me up on this. I believe you mentioned something about the possibility of one company subbing, having a subcontract with another company in the feasibility stage. If anybody wants to hop on and confirm that, I want to make sure I'm giving accurate guidance.
Yeah, Cody. Yeah, so this is Tim Nolan. So I'll just add in here for companies that are collaborating. I mean, you can certainly write in that you're going to do that. You're going to be restricted to the requirements based off of the solicitation about the limitations in subcontracting and how you're going to either determine or set up your legal structure. There's going to be kind of some implications about that, but whether or not that's going to be a joint venture or whether or not there's a prime and a sub relationship or whatever. And so there's a little bit of nuance relative to whatever structure that you set up for that collaboration. But you can certainly collaborate on a submission, which would kind of come into play more on the phase 2, whenever you actually have done the customer discovery and the feasibility study to determine what it is that you're actually going to try to build out with the scope of work. However, you can still do that collaboration, but please consult the solicitation and then make sure that you're staying within the the subcontracting requirements that are listed therein.
Okay, I will count that as an answer for that question. So the next question then is from Jason. with unlimited rights being requested, what transition opportunities, such as production licensing, will be provided to the small business, such as sole source phase 3? I don't want to get too much into the contracting piece of this. The only thing I'll offer from a requirements and a kind of just a general knowledge about what we're trying to do. So, the focal point behind this push is that we have a current existing inventory of Su-67 pylons. Barry, please back me up. I believe that number is roughly around 60 pylons. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. It's around 60.
Okay, so the intent for this is to over time, as outcome starts to go offline and we bring online LRSO, we then look to start phasing in a modified Su-67. So with that being said, I don't think that there should be a push for any sort of production or anything like that. It's all essentially just rewiring, reworking of the existing pylon, refurbishment of the existing pylon. um, as far as contracting and who's going to be doing that, and what the end state of that is, I'm not sure. I want to say, in an ideal world, that we present a COA as a byproduct of this effort, that we have a company that's come in and we have demonstrated prototypes of this capability. um, where that goes from there, I'm not sure, because I don't like to speak on contracting, or any of those things, unless Cody or any of those guys have anything to add to that.
Not for me. Tim, would you have any further insight on that question?
Nothing additional to add.
Okay, copy that. Is the feasibility, sorry, this is from Brandon. Is the feasibility study expected to be conducted in SysML? So I believe the SIBR topic proposed, or was looking for both CAD models of a proposal, as well as SysML, which I believe Dayton's, if there's specific questions on what SysML is, one of those folks can answer that. But um, that was the intent of the SIBR topic, is to have both CAD models and SysML, uh, supportability as part of this feasibility study. All right, and then I have another one from Brandon. What is the fairing requirement to any new munitions? I don't think, sitting here, I understand what you're getting at by fairing requirements. If you wouldn't mind typing up expounding information to follow up that question.
Soko, can I take that one?
Sure.
Yeah, if you're referring to the fairings, there will likely be a requirement. It's very not definitized right now, because we don't know the outer mold line of the munitions we're developing. So there is likely to be some fairing work, but I can't really define that right now, how much that will be.
And I'll just jump in briefly and say that does bring up a good point. Companies, as you ask questions, if you feel like it wasn't answered, or it's led to a follow-on question, or you just need to explain the question further, you have opportunity. This is not a one question per company thing. So if there's something else that you want to ask, now is your chance. So I just want to hop in and let you guys make sure that's clear. Over.
All right, thanks, Cody. So then I got a question from Tim. How can we get the TOs that I referenced? So again, just to answer the question, or expound on the comment that I made earlier. So we cannot provide you any of that information right now, until we get to a follow-on phase where we start getting into some contract awards. I would say, if you have the ability to reference or pull any of these TOs on your own, more power to you. But that's nothing that we can do right now until we actually get to the next phase. All right, and then continuing to scroll down through here, I got a question from Jason. what safety of flight requirements are necessary for ready to flight demonstration in phase 2. So I think this is a kind of an open-ended question right now. I think ultimately, I think the goal from our perspective is to not make any sort of wholesale changes to the pylon that would require us to go back through like a Seek Eagle process, which I think is something that's attainable. We'll have to see, specifically, what each company ultimately ends up proposing to answer that question. But I think right now, we would like to strive towards maintaining as close of an integrity to the existing design of the pylon as possible. Which would hopefully preclude us from having to do a lot of those in-depth testing. And then at that point, it just becomes, okay, what munitions are you wanting to hang on there? And that's a different discussion for a different day. All right, so I got a question from Pat. Can Barry talk about the insides of the pylon since we have no data at this time? Barry, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, so inside the pylon, besides the actual physical structure to support the weight of the stores, we have cabling going from the aircraft interface uh, to an avionics bay, which right now includes a missile interface unit, which is a large interfaced device, and there's also a relay which controls and communicates with the ejector racks. So each missile station, and there's 6 of them on the pylon, have an ejector rack attached to it, which actually supports the weapon itself. Uh, and so there's a lot of cabling inside the pylon existing. All of that is going to be obsolete with this modification. So so that will have to come out as part of the mod effort. Again, those are later phases, uh, but we're looking for that. Also inside the pylon is ECS ducting, right? So the stores, the AGM-86 Alchem that's stored on the pylons right now needs cooling air for its avionics. So there's ducting and valves and such that are inside the pylon that takes air from the aircraft and actually plumbs it to each missile. That won't be required either, and that may be one of the requirements in later phases that we ask about removing unneeded, obsolete, dormant type wiring and ducting. Pat, did that help you out?
Okay, he responded yes, thanks. All right, so I think we're good on that question. All right, so I got a question from Jason. Are typical pylon avionics included in the study, or is this bound to structural and cabling identified in 16W6? All right, so I think to answer your question, I think that, there's probably going to be a combination of both, right? So I think obviously, part of this SIBR topic requires us to go in there and, assess, existing ducting, cabling and all that to figure out a way to modify that to be 1760 compatible. So I think, we've established that. So in terms of additional avionics, so as Barry just kind of alluded to, so this pylon currently is wired and mech'd for support only to the air launch cruise missile and the 1553 data bus, that supports, that. So, I think, once we move on to a phase 2 and we start sharing some of this technical information with you guys, you'll be able to go in and kind of see, uh, the transitions and the way things kind of interact and so forth, the way communication kind of flows through the pylon out to the existing stations. But I would anticipate, to a certain degree, some of those things are going to have to be addressed as part of this this effort as well. All right, so I just got a follow-on question from Casey at let's see, just double checking. Was it mentioned that the ejector rack cabling would have to be modified for this effort? If so, why would the ejector cabling need modification? Barry, do you want to respond to that one as well?
Casey, I'm just not sure if it will need to be modified or not. That's really an engineering question that I can't answer at this point.
Soko, just circling back to one of the earlier questions that you answered from Thomas Sabota, you'd put an answer in and then he had followed up. So please confirm that we will do a CAD model from tech orders and any available drawings that the Air Force can provide. I assume that's sort of a question from him. I'm not sure if you answered that or not. I just want to make sure you saw that and were able to comment.
Yeah, apologies, I didn't see that question. So yes, I mean the intent behind this, would be to perform CAD modeling. Like I said, a couple of times, we'll provide you, whatever companies move forward in the contract phase, as much tech data as that we possibly can, um, you know, and we'll make that information available to you. I think part of this would also potentially involve, companies coming out to whether it's Barksdale or some other, global strike location, physically in person to even perform scans of these pylons to help you in that process. But yes, to answer the question, CAD modelings, I think, are going to be required for this effort. Does that answer the question?
If that does not answer the question to the asker's satisfaction, Thomas Sabota can feel free to reply. And I will just point you, sir, to this is to Soko, the webinar chat. I think there was a confirmation of some of the numbers that you had read earlier, TO number and one of the other, I believe it was an item or part number or something. It was asked if that was correct, you can check that chat. Because that information, I assume everybody can see that. And just to make sure it's accurate.
Okay, yeah, copy that. I will, I'll go in and I'll retype those part numbers and TOs. I think the part number is a little bit, the part number is incorrect, but I think the TO is accurate. So yeah, I'll go in and retype that part number in there for everybody.
No, I did that, Soko, already, and
okay.
replied back to Mr. Nolan.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Barry.
Yeah. So it looks like all the questions are answered at this point. Are there any that have come in that you wanted to take a circle back at, or anybody else while you have a chance, while you've got these experts on the line? Are there any more questions that you'd like to ask? We've got a few more minutes that we can spare if you want to give it a final shot.
Yeah, please repost your question if I didn't get to it, because those things are kind of just popping up and off my screen. So
yes,
if I didn't cover your question, please re-ask it.
And while we're waiting to see if anybody, okay, yeah, here's one that's showing up. Can you see that one from Brandon Whitbeck?
Okay, yeah. So if a SysML model is required, is there a government reference architecture that we are expected to use? I don't know the answer to that question. So Dayton, I think you kind of filled me in a little bit on the SysML questions earlier. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I'll just chime in. So SysML, yeah, that is the standard expected to use. No, there is no GRA that we currently have available. We just want to see what you guys would propose in your feasibility study. Over.
Two more questions have just popped up, Soko.
All right, so a question from Tim, is this effort primarily electrical in nature? Does the Pylon already contain the 1760 interface? Does it need to be modified, or is it not currently present at all? So to the first part of that question, I think you know, from what I can tell, again, so this, I'm not an engineer, Barry's not an engineer, but we assess this to be primarily, you know, wiring in nature, right? You know, we don't assess, you know, any sort of in-depth modification or structural changes need to occur to the pylon. Now, that's our assumption. Again, the devil's in the details. So once folks start coming in and, you know, performing scans of these pylons and seeing what needs to come, what needs to go, you know, that may change, but that's what we know right now. Does this pylon already contain 1760? No, it does not. So yes, so those things would have to be, you know, modified and wired into the pylon as well.
Soko, can I chime in?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so back to Casey's question. You know, Casey, there's going to be some sort of storage interface unit involved here. We don't really have that defined, but you know, but we'll have to have some sort of LRU that allows the aircraft to talk to all the weapon stations. Still undefined at this point.
Okay, it looks like that gets us caught up. I've got a few comments in conclusion, and I'll start those. But as I'm talking, if you have further questions, you go ahead and put those in, because that's why we're having this call right now, is for your sake. So I'm going to begin these closing statements, but again, add anything you want. I do want to say to everybody, we really appreciate you coming and participating in this effort today, and really look forward to the down select and partnering with, I think, up to 6 of you for this feasibility study, and then seeing what kind of just innovative technologies that you can bring to the table to help these guys. So thanks for coming. If you later think of a question, maybe your question wasn't fully answered, I'm happy to be a help, to be a middleman. My email, and Dayton, maybe you can just drop my email in the chat there, cody.ray@smallbcc.com. If I can be a help to you in any way, just hit me up and I'll be sure to forward questions or comments or do the best I can to get you your answers. Future questions, once this goes to the open period, will have to be asked through DSIP. So that's the only way. You'll no longer be able to communicate directly with the TPOD through email or phone. It'll have to be through DSIP. So just be aware of that. Again, this recording will be posted publicly with a link on our LinkedIn page. So if you want to go back and review the comments that were made, just make sure that you have access to LinkedIn and to Small Business Consulting Corporation's LinkedIn page, and there'll be a link there so you can come back and review. Again, thank you for partnering. We genuinely look forward to working with you guys. Our military members and families spend long, hard hours putting sometimes their very lives in harm's way, and they sacrifice a great deal, not just those who are actively serving, but their families. And so we encourage you guys in the business community to press ahead in your business, to spend your long hours and your hard work perfecting your tech, your processes, and your people. Because when you bring your best and our military brings its best together, we're a force to reckon with. Small Business Consulting Corporation, the United States Air Force are eager to work together with you to help your company grow as you seek to help the men and women of our armed forces, and as they are looking to defend our freedoms, our way of life in the United States. And I will say, lastly, to the companies that have participated, if you would like to add your company to our database, we have a database of a business network. Feel free to go to our website, Dayton. Perhaps you can put that in the chat there. Yeah, the Join Our Network is actually there in the chat. All you got to do is click on that. It's like a 30-second effort to fill in your company's information. The power in this is there's a space called the technology description, and really encourage you, if you want to put your company in our business network, it's essentially going to go before decision makers right now in Air Force Global Strike Command, Air Education Training Command, and we've got other commands we're looking to bring on board as well and do work for. You can get your company in front of them so that when a general officer or decision maker comes to us and says, I need X technology, they can put keywords in our search. And if you have that keyword in your tech description, your company pops up, and we can help them see if you're going to be a good fit for them. So when you fill out the tech description, try to be full in your description of your capabilities, but be sure you use keywords that a general or somebody who doesn't know all of your technological language might use if they're looking for you. Just click on that link. You can add yourself there. Looks like no further questions have come in. So with that, really want to say thanks to the TPOCs and SMEs, to Barry, Shades, SoCo for your time and your extra work in helping bring some new technology to the Air Force. Thanks to the SBCC team and to everybody here that's come to participate. I really appreciate looking forward to working with you guys in the future. With that, we'll end the call. Thank you.